President Zelensky has expressed his belief that the war will continue for a long time, and he should be more appreciative of the United States' support.
President Zelensky supposedly made a statement today in AP. I'm not a big fan of AP, so maybe it was an incorrect statement, but he said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time, and he better not be right about that.
The U.S. has provided more than Europe, especially in the border area, which was crucial to Europe. Europe should have given more, as they have a secure loan to repay the debt. The U.S. should be smarter in providing aid, as they have a presence in the country and access to rare earth, and to stop the loss of thousands of soldiers and civilians.
Well, I just think you should be more appreciative because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us because, as you know, that's right there. That's the border. This country really was like the fence on the border. It was very important to Europe, and I'm not knocking Europe. I'm saying that they were a lot smarter than Joe Biden because Joe Biden didn't have a clue. He just gave money hand over fist, and they should have been able to equalize with us. In other words, if we gave $1, they should have given. Well, we gave $350 billion. They probably gave $100, but on top of it all, they get their money back because they're doing it in the form of a loan, and it's a secured loan. So when I saw that, which I've known about for a little while, I said it's time for us to be smart. At the same time, it's great for them because they get us in the country taking the rare earth, which is going to fuel this big engine, and especially the engine that we've in a very short time created. And we get something, and we're there. We have a presence there. With all of that being said, I want one thing to happen. I want all of those young people to stop being killed. They're being killed by the thousands every single week. Last week, 2,700 were killed. 2,700 young, in this case, just about all young boys from Ukraine and from Russia. And that's not young people from the United States, but it's on a human basis. I want to see it stop. The money is one thing, but the death. And they're losing thousands of soldiers a week. And that's not including the people that get killed every time a town goes down or a missile goes into a town.
In other news, Canada is facing a trade war with the U.S. due to 25% tariffs on oil and gas, fertilizers, potash, uranium, hydroelectricity, and other related products. The U.S. is Canada's closest friend and best ally, with a secure and strong border. Canada is the biggest client of the U.S., buying from it more than China, Japan, France, and the UK combined. The U.S. and Canada are interdependent, with millions of jobs in the U.S. and Canada. Canada has experience dealing with President Trump, having renegotiated the USMCA and ensuring the security of the border. The USMCA was a significant change when $155 billion worth of tariffs were imposed, leading to a tanking U.S. markets and potentially increased gas prices. Canada's Strong Border Plan and Strong Border Plan have reacted strongly to the rise of populism in the U.S. Canada is dealing with 3 executive orders related to fentanyl, aluminum, and steel, which affect jobs in the U.S. The U.S. has Chinese tariffs on China and does not accept dumping for China. The second executive order and the April 1st delay on the executive order are currently being studied. The EU needs to coordinate and work together to prevent tariffs from becoming an impulse. American people will ultimately decide that tariffs are not impulse, and they will ultimately support the arguments presented by Canada.
I would just say this to people in Canada or Mexico: if they're going to build car plants, the people that are doing them are much better off building here because we have the market. We're the market where they sell the most. And so I think it's going to be very exciting for the automobile companies.
Everybody is shocked that Canada is going through that right now. But at the same time, I think that just to give a bit of context to everyone here, we're the closest friend and the best ally of the United States, period. The best neighbor they could ever have, 5,000 kilometers of undefended border, a very secure and strong border. And we are the biggest client of the United States. We buy from the US more than China, Japan, France, and the UK combined. There are millions of jobs in the US and, of course, in Canada that are linked. We are extremely integrated in terms of our own economy. And we provide a lot of energy to the US. Oil and gas, fertilizers, so potash, uranium for their nuclear sites, hydroelectricity, and, of course, everything linked to uranium. So I've said uranium, potash, and hydroelectricity and oil and gas. So ultimately, there is an interdependency between the US and Canada. But when we hear 25% tariffs, it's an existential threat, because this would account on hundreds of thousands of jobs in Canada being lost and higher unemployment rate coming from our best friend and best ally. So we have experience dealing with President Trump. We went through the renegotiation of NAFTA, which is called the USMCA. What we know is when President Trump talks, you have to listen, and you have to make sure that you are abiding by what he's saying, in the sense that you have to take him seriously. But what President Trump respects is strength. So from the moment that we were imposed 25% tariffs based on the fact that there was a fentanyl crisis in the US coming from Canada, let's go back on facts, 1% of fentanyl in the US comes from Canada, 1% of illegal migrants in the US come from Canada. So we had a very strong border plan. We made sure to engage with the Trump administration. We presented how we would make sure that the border would be secure. We had many allies in the Republican Party, many allies, of course, with the Democrats. And ultimately, what made a big, big change is when we said, you know what? $155 billion worth of tariffs against the U.S. And you saw the U.S. markets tanking, and you saw also potentially the price of gas going up. So my point to all of you is we're the canary in the coal mine. If the U.S. administration is doing that to Canada, you're next. And we need to work together on this. And what I saw when it comes to, you were talking about the rise of populism, and I think our people in Canada reacted so strongly to the fact that we were so strong. My party used to be 25% back in the polls. Within a week, we're nearly at par with the opposition. Because Canadians are afraid, are anxious, and love the fact that we're standing strong. We're dealing with 3 executive orders. You mentioned the first one being linked to fentanyl and the border, and it's us and Mexico. You've mentioned also the one on aluminum and steel. And this is about great American steel workers. This is about great Canadian steel workers. We're linked. We're integrated. If they put tariffs on them, on our exports, basically, they're affecting jobs in the U.S. Mm-hmm. And we have Chinese, tariffs on China. We don't accept any form of dumping from China neither. So I think that so that's the second executive order. And the third one is the April 1st delay on the executive order that was signed on Inauguration Day, which is about studying the entire trade relationship the U.S. has with every single trade partner. There are 500 public servants in Washington working on this right now.
And what do you need other countries to do? You're sitting in the heart of Europe today.
Yeah.
What is it that you need the EU to do?
We need to coordinate.
Okay.
We presented already a first list of $30 billion worth of tariffs. We need to make sure that we work together, because ultimately none of us will change the perception of President Trump. The only people in the world that will make sure that tariffs are not imposed are American people themselves. And when they understand that this is affecting the gas, at the pump, or when they understand that it's ultimately much more costly at the grocery store, they'll say enough. So that's why we need to work together to make sure ultimately that I think our arguments prevail.